And real quick here for Stuart, we were talking about these LEAPS calls. We were talking about these farther out long call positions. And, long call search tool. There we go. He says, when and why I would use a LEAPS covered call. So it's a little bit different. Why would I sell a LEAPS call? Is it because you have a bearish or neutral outlook? If I did a LEAP covered call, sold something that was 400 or 500 days out in time, what am I getting, Stuart? I'm getting a larger premium in, absolutely, for the higher time premium. I have a higher downside protection, absolutely. But let's take SPY. I'm going to do a quick search here on SPY, Stuart, to show what I want to illustrate. We're going to say all expirations. We're just going to go one strike in the money, okay, for covered call positions. I'm just going to limit it to 1-to-1. I am want to see some open interest, of course, and I want to see some option volume. Oh, I don't want to see all the weeklies. So I'm going to go just 30 days out to whatever. I'm going to avoid seeing every week by week. It would still be useful to see that, but we're going to avoid that for now. And we're just going to look at SPY. And I want to sort lowest to highest for percent if unchanged. Actually, we'll use percent if assigned, but I'm going to sort lowest to highest. Let's submit that. Okay. Now we still got some of those weeklies in. We've got our 2- and 3-day out options, the 13th, the 15th, the 17th. What am I doing here? The reason why I'm showing this, Stuart, is because if I go as far out as possible, 399 days at the 465 strike, we're pretty close. Okay, let's go 320, 467. I'm getting $31. Almost 7% against the underlying price of 467. I'm getting that higher premium of $31 for 322 days. This is an annualized return of 8%. That's not too bad. Okay, that's pretty good, Stuart. I've got a decent downside protection of 6.7%, max annualized return of 8% for the next 322 days. 7.1 static, 8% annualized return. Do you get more money when you sell a LEAPS call as a covered call position? Yes. Do you hurt your potential annualized return? Yes. You're lowering the annualized return because the option that is 6 months out in time, May 467 at 22.58, is not 6 times the cost of the 30-day out option. The 1 month out December series is at 774. The May series 6 month out is at 22.58. That's only 3 times the cost, not 6. You get a lower annualized return by doing this. Why would I do it? If I'm concerned about, there's a trade-off here, Stuart. If you are concerned about market conditions, you have a stock that you're holding, you want to have a high downside protection, collect a high premium because you're worried about a downturn on the position, selling a LEAPS call might do that for you. What is another disadvantage, in my opinion, of selling a LEAPS call? This time value decays more slowly. The time value decay curve goes like this, where this is 30 days out, this is 90 days out, this is 120, 150, 200. So even if the stock's still staying between 470 and 460, you're not seeing any real decay. It's still going to be $30.80, $30.75. You're not going to start seeing decay until you really get in about 260 days to expiration. I'm sorry, 260 days from now, Stuart, my apologies, 60, 70, 80 days, you're going to start to see more rapid time decay. Whereas here, that time decay is working in our favor, 30 days out, 14 days out, and so forth. So your other question is that how does going to the LEAPS affect your delta? Oh, I didn't have it here. I'm sorry. Let's add that column in real quick, Stuart. We want the delta. There we go. For these LEAP positions. We send that. There we go. They're pretty much about the same. You know, I'm at the money. I'm not giving up too much delta. Gamma is going to be a little different. Theta is going to be a little bit different in these scenarios because we're way far out in time. But, Stuart, you're not really affecting delta too much by going further out in time. We're all about the same. I am looking at the money, as you mentioned, so you see it here. Yes, the shorter term one, you know, we're at 0.50, 0.50. We're pretty much at 0.50 anywhere we go. This one's different because it's a different strike, right? The 465 is a little bit more in the money out 399 days. in that case, okay? So that's one of the things that you want to consider when you're evaluating those scenarios. Stuart, okay, so it doesn't really affect delta in that case. You still have the same delta. If you're selling an at-the-money leap call, as a covered call, Stuart, you're still probably about 0.5 delta, as we can see. Now, this is the SPY, has a lower implied volatility. If you're looking at a stock, say like Tesla, you might see differences in delta. Let's check it out. Let's see what we got. Let's just use Tesla. Higher implied volatility, probably varying implied volatilities further out in time, or closer in time, I should say, in that case, Stuart. But it's still within range, right? We're all at the 1025 here. We start to see a higher delta as you go further out into the leaps. Implied volatilities are all about the same, but we're talking about 0.6 now instead of 0.19, 0.18 for SPY. So you do see an increase in delta as you go further out, keeping, most of these are at the money to 1025. Where's my 1020? Okay, 1030 and 1025. So they are different. Yeah, but the 1025 here, 6 months out is at 0.59. 1025, 400 days out is at 0.63. So you do expect to see a little bit of that, but on those lower implied volatility positions, we looked at Facebook, we looked at Microsoft, we looked at SPY. You wouldn't expect to see it. Sal asks a strategic question here related to some of our calendar discussions more in this concept, but not really. He says, are LEAPS and PMCC synonymous terms? Absolutely not. LEAPS, stand for the long-term equity anticipation securities. That is the full acronym. And it just means an option that's considered LEAP. Usually, broad term, it just means the 1 year out January series or the 2 year out January series, 2023, 2024. Okay. And can I use a diagonal calendar spread or a calendar spread with LEAPS options? Absolutely. Can I use a calendar spread, diagonal calendar spread, or what some people refer to as, I don't like to use, Sal, the poor man's covered call? The call option I'm buying could only be 3 months out in time, 4 months out in time. It could be 2 months out in time, and I'm selling weeklies against it every 5 days. So I have 8 right cycles between now and 2 months from now, depending on your outlook, depending on your risk tolerance, and depending on the structure and your goals for the return that you want. So no, poor man's covered call is not synonymous with LEAPS. LEAPS refer to an option that can be used as a long call, in a long strangle, in a calendar call, in a covered call, in a married put, which I should have mentioned, I'm sorry for Stuart as well. If you're concerned, honestly, if you have a stock that you've been trading for a while and you have a lower cost basis and you're concerned about a downturn, rather than considering selling a far out in time call, in that case, which lowers your annualized return, you might want to use the insurance tool here and consider buying a far out in time put to lock in potentially the gains you have on the position, still have the ability to sell weekly calls against the position. But Sal, the poor man's covered call is a term used for buying an in-the-money call in place of the stock and selling the near-term call against it. It could be any structure at any time frame. It is not synonymous with using LEAPS. I can use LEAPS in the quote-unquote poor man's covered call, but as I showed in the beginning, I don't like to use that term because you take a covered call, you always have that locked-in return of 3, 4, 5%, no matter how far the stock goes above the position. In the diagonal spread, like the example we used, it falls off of that because the delta ratio shifts as you get to expiration. Your short option now has a higher delta of closer to 1 than your long option delta, whether it's 2 months out, 5 months out, or a LEAP. And if you set up the structure wrong, which is why I have the criteria set on most of the default searches in the calendar call diagonal positions for a debit to strike difference ratio than 1. If you pay a higher debit of the call that you buy and the call that you sold against it than the difference in strike prices. So let's say I paid a $12 debit and I bought a $3.90 and sold a $400. If the stock suddenly shoots up to $4.25 on good news and I get assigned early, I'm expecting this 35% return. But my broker has to exercise my long to deliver the short. I only get 10 points back. I'm actually at a loss of $2 in this transaction because that return was based on being able to sell to close this option that still has the time value in place. Okay. That's the debit to strike difference ratio. We've got a ton of videos on diagonal. Let me just do that right now. We got a ton of for poor man's. Let's just do that. Good candidates for a poor man's covered call. We talk about it there. Follow up to best criteria for poor man's covered call. Those are two ones you might want to consider looking at there, Sal, related to the diagonal spread. And that might also help out Anthony as well, even though we don't discuss LEAPS directly in that case. Let's go back to our calendar call spread search. And this is our LEAPS one. And I'm just going to go to a profit and loss chart. So Pavol says, does it ever make sense to allow the short call be assigned on the diagonal call spread? Everyone's calling it a poor man's covered call. I don't like to use the term. Or is it always better to close the whole position, buy back the short, and sell the lead? If I'm in this structure, if my call option, Pavol, whether it's deep in the money, whether it's at the money, if that is 6, 7, 8 months out in time, 5 months out in time, 3 months out in time, I want to buy to close my short call and sell to close my long. I don't want it to be exercised. Why? Because right now, this option, excuse me for scrolling again, we're looking at a $93, $94 stock, $93, $50 stock with an $87.50 call. Okay, this is 6 points in the money. Not a lot. And it's priced at $12.63. $6.63 of that is time value. In the first 30 days, that's not going to decay that much. Let's take a look here. Let's go to standard December expiration. In this example, we'd be selling the December 100 call and buying the September 87.50 call. Let's say the stock goes up to 103. Not a big move, but let's say it goes up to 103 on 12/17. Yeah, our short call is going to be worth 300. Our 87.50 call, which is 15.5 points in the money, has a price of $19.51. If I allow exercise and assignment, what am I getting out of this? I'm only getting $12.50. I'm getting $12.50 back at intrinsic assignment. I'm missing that $4.50, $4 of time value that still remains in the long option. So if I liquidated this, I'm getting $16.50 back. If I allow assignment, I'm only getting $12.50. That's a 30% increase, isn't it? If I took a $12 profit versus increasing it 4 points, that's 30% higher. If I'm, if I'm planning on exiting the position, I want to be able to sell to close this. Now, Pavol, if you had started a diagonal calendar spread, poor man's covered call, by buying a 2-month out option with the goal to sell week by week against it, and you've sold 3 weeks in a row, and now it's gone above your short call strike price, you only have 2 or 3 weeks left to expiration. In that case, if there's no zero to little time value remaining on your long option, it might be okay to take assignment. It might come out to be almost the same, but a little different. But if you have any time value remaining on this call, if it's still 3 months out, 4 months out, 5 months out, it's still a leap, and you've only traded it for 2 months, you want to sell to close that option and buy to close the short. I'm still making much more profit than taking assignment on that position if there's still time remaining. Again, if it's a shorter term one and I have zero time value remaining on the position, then I'm not going to worry about it. It might be the same. If it's cheaper for me to take assignment with my broker in that scenario than to close both legs, hey, maybe I'll save the extra 20 cents or 30 cents by doing that. Maybe that's worth it. But in most cases, if you're still far out in time, you've got 2 months, 3 months, 4 months or more on your call option that's used in the diagonal call spread, you want to be in the position to be able to sell to close that, take the time value that still remains on that long option, rather than just getting the intrinsic back between the strike prices. Okay. But if you had a deep in the money call that's 4 months out in time and your time value is only 0.1%, okay, now you're about the same place, right? It doesn't matter if you take assignment or sell to close it. All you're gaining by selling to close it is 0.1%, right? But in the situation we're looking at here, if in that first cycle, this goes deep in the money, hey, even if it goes up to 120 in this case, this is going to cost me $2,000 to buy back. I can sell to close this for about 14. I'm still making more of a profit than exercise an assignment at 12.50, right? I'd be making $1,400 instead of $1,250. Why wouldn't I want that extra profit by being able to do that? And that's what we look for there in that case. And that's what I would consider doing. As far as the poor man coverage call go, I always look to be able to sell to close the long and not put the assignment in hands if there's any time value, even reasonable or unreasonable, left.